Welcome to Newmarket Vox. I'm Mark Knopf-Thomas. Newmarket is New Zealand's retail, fashion, hospitality, entertainment and business mecca. Newmarket Vox is a monthly podcast where we take a deep dive into the brains of a business leader. Make sure you're following us at Newmarket NZ on your favourite social media channel and stay tuned after the interview for the latest updates on what's happening in Newmarket.
I just remember this feeling of being like, I'm doing this for me and this is going to be epic. Yeah. And this like elated feeling. Coming from that basketball background, everything to me is about the team culture. And actually my dad always taught this, nothing ever runs smoothly, but you just deal with it when it comes up.
Founder of The Agncy Group, home to fabric, leading men's and women's wear with multiple brands in their boutiques in Britomart and Newmarket. The Agncy Group is a wholesale business featuring international brands such as Anina Bing, Samso and Forte across Australia and New Zealand. Alongside this, in partnership, running 3 retail stores for Anina Bing. A successful businesswoman, a fashion powerhouse and an all-around great human being, I'm delighted to welcome to this month's podcast, Jacki Brescic. Jacki, thank you for joining us.
Well, that's quite an intro, but thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. So basically with this podcast, we just tumble through lots of topics, lots of themes. Feel free to give and share as much as you're willing to. First up, where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? Where were you born? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so with Croatian heritage, but grew up in Sydney, Australia. So in a tiny town, well, it's a tiny town, I mean, quite a big suburb called Forestville. And then moved to Mossman later in life, and now I'm a Bondi resident, so loving that beach life.
So how long have you been in Bondi?
Bondi, the last 3 years, and I was so nervous to move to Bondi because, I don't know, if you ever go to Bondi, you realise, you're like, what are all these people doing? Like, Monday to Friday, there is just, filled with people on the beach. I was like, if I go to Bondi, I'm not going to work. Yeah. But it's been glorious coming home, seeing the ocean, and just the ultimate stress release.
Actually, Bondi is like being on holiday. I was there actually a few weeks ago and went for a swim. And it's like, what do these people do? It was like during the week. It's like,
like everyone is not working. So it is quite, and there is the temptation to wag a day here or there, but you actually can't.
So growing up in Australia, where did you go for summer holidays and things like that?
Yeah, so look, earliest memories would be, going to Croatia with my family, spending 2 months of our winter there and just loving life there and being, having so much fun. But also, I remember going with my best friend Hayley, and we'd go to their holiday house at up the coast, Shoal Bay, and I loved going there because Hayley and I were the ultimate geeks, and we'd get up and then we'd do our Kumon, which I don't know if you've got Kumon here, but it's like a maths tutoring program. We'd do an hour of our Kumon practice, and then we'd practice the piano, and then we'd be ready to go for a walk. And this is just between the ages of 8 and 15, before we were chasing boys. And I just remember us being the super geeks, but loving it.
Going back to Croatia. So Croatia these days is such a popular destination for tourists, and everyone's going to Croatia at various times. Yeah. Whereabouts in Croatia are you from?
So my mum is from Korčula, which is a gorgeous island in the south Dalmatian coast. And then my dad's up north from, it's kind of like we call it the farm, but it's a place called Glavanovići, and it's near Trieste. So we've kind of got the best of both worlds. Yeah. And, both mum and dad will argue about which one's better. And but I'm going back there this year. So it is a special place because it's, it's our heritage. And I feel like so much of who we are is that even though they both emigrated when they were young, my mum when she was 14, dad at 19, but at the core of it, I think, things that we take on are that work ethic, that they taught us. Sure. And also I think the Balkan, the brutal honesty or the directness, I just can't get any other way. So
I love that.
They're the bits that we take from them, but it's definitely a special place and a place that we visit a lot.
So your mum and dad immigrated separately and they met in Australia?
They met in Australia. Oh, it's the Croatian club in King's Cross, which is hilarious.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, really cool.
When you were growing up, did you have a strong interest in fashion? Was that something which was always going on in your life?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think I was thinking back to my earliest childhood memories of my sister had the most amazing wardrobe, and I think the firstborn child of like an immigrant, like they gave her whatever she wanted. So she had Versace and Dolce and Gabbana, and this is like early 90s, and she's like 15 or whatever.
That's so bougie.
It was so bougie. And my same friend, I remember Haley and I, Gilda would go out for the night, and we'd be in her wardrobe trying everything on. And you know, obviously we get into trouble when she came back, but I just remember having the best wardrobe, and I think like my love of fashion came from there. And also my mum and my dad would always, no matter what was happening, there was always like, you know, dress well always, you know, and dad always said to me, Dali, I don't care what you spend on clothes or food, like that were the most important thing. Look good, eat well, and that was it, sort of thing. I don't think he realized how much we would spend on clothes, but it was definitely, you know, my mum and my sister had a strong interest in it, and that just came through, you know, with me. And back in those days, you know, it makes us sound really old, which we're not. Back in those days, it was, you know, there were dress codes for restaurants. You know, you would never go out in a pair of jeans, you know, which is the forefront of like what we're doing now. And the airplane, and I think that's been instilled. Like if I go on a flight, I'm still dressed up because that was everything that my parents, it's the way we brought up.
I think COVID also is, especially in New Zealand, casualisation, if that's a word, of it, the way we dress for work and go out. It's amazing,
No, it's but I kind of love, and even I kind of love how, and I think that's why I love what we do, how what you put on makes you feel a different way. Like if you've got a meeting and you dress up, you just feel, I feel so much better. It's never going to be something that's not, you know, dressing for, I guess, the position above.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in your earlier years in your career, what did you start off doing?
So, I mean, it's funny. So I actually finished school and, you know, didn't have a lot of career advice at all, but I was really sporty at school. So I ended up going and doing a sports science degree. Yeah. And I was heavily into basketball coaching. So I was a state basketball coach, which was huge at, you know, the early age that I was coaching for New South Wales. And then I went through it's
pretty amazing, actually, I've got to say.
Well, it's such a, I think team and sport and achieving and also like that passion for excellence has been in me from like a young age. So if we're doing something, we're doing it right. Okay. Yeah. And so the basketball coaching was everything, and it was all volunteer. So every weekend I was like up early, driving out in every different direction and coaching these kids. And, you know, I think like that passion that I've got was like, it was the best venue or forum for me. And then I finished my degree, and the options were to be a PE teacher or get into sports science more. And I remember doing a PE prac at Kincoppel, which is a really well-to-do school in Sydney, and being there, and no offense to anyone that went to Kincoppel, but I was there, I was like, it doesn't matter how good I am at this, like these kids, like they're going to they determine how good I can be. It's not me. And I thought at that moment, I was like, I want to determine how good I can be. Yeah. And so I left there and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go into fashion. And I remember being at sports science, and I'd always meet my sister in Paddington, and we'd be going through the international Vogues and fashion. It was fashion mixed with sport always. And I'd turn up to the sports science degree in the sass and bides of the day and my fur coats, and totally inappropriate, but loved it and didn't really care. Yeah. Anyway, so I left, and I remember, and I don't actually know what the distinctive moment was. People were like, when did you decide fashion was it? But I was like, I'm going to go to fashion college. You know, that was the next thing. And so I did. And I remember my Dali saying, my dad saying, no, Dali, you know, go be a PE teacher. It's stable. You get your holidays. And I was like, no, I'm just going to go do it. Yeah. And so I went to fashion college, and it was completely different to uni. It was sort of, I think it was more about the connections that you made there. So I went in there and I just wanted to learn everything I could about this industry. I knew nothing. And so I'd sign up for every work experience that you could, and I was getting the fashion week. I was like the hostess at fashion week, you know, which was just the coolest thing in my world, or like going to this PR firm, and I was so fortunate because they kept putting me forward, and I kept getting these amazing, you know, different roles, and then all of a sudden I got offered the job as brand manager for True Religion brand jeans. Now this is like circa 2003. True Religion's just about to come out. Yeah. And I wasn't going to take the job because I was only 4 months into this business college thing, and I was like, no, I just want to go and do more work experience. Like I want to learn what's out there. Like, no, I'm not. And the head of the college called me, Croatian woman. Yeah. Great. And funnily enough, you know, my mum knew her for some village, and it was all I love it. And she called and she said, take the job. And she said, these jobs do not come up often. And I said, but it's only 30 grand. You know, and even back then that wasn't a lot of money. And I remember sitting there being offered and thought, I don't think I can get my hair done for 30. Like this is, I remember saying that in the interview when he told me, I was like, I can't get my hair done. Like if I'm getting, like they're just, you know, it wasn't in my realm, but I took the job. And I remember, the day before posting on Facebook being like, does anyone know, and unfortunately I said, what the F a brand manager does? Because I had no idea. And I was like, wow, so inappropriate. But
Fake it till you make it, right? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I went in there, and the girl that was teaching me, she had 2 weeks to teach me, and she was a proper alcoholic. And she taught me one report, the F12 report. I'll never forget this report for as long as I live, And it was this 100-page report, and it showed sales orders, purchase orders, and what you had left to order.
Yeah.
And this was the report that started the business. And this company, it was a distributor. And I ended up working with him for 10 years. And there were 3 of us at the time. But the most amazing thing was I got to learn and grow as the business did. So I remember getting there at 7 in the morning. I'd leave at 7 at night, because it's that intensity, or that, I don't know what it is, but it's like I've got to know it, and I've got to understand it fully, and I've got to understand everything about it. And if I don't, my mind is just, circling. So, I got a pay rise pretty quickly, and then again. And
so go on that point. So does that sort of make you deliver excellence, being under pressure?
Delivering excellence is like core of who I am. Yeah. And it's either like, it doesn't matter what we're doing, but we're going to do it well. Yeah. Whether it's making a cup of coffee for a client, in our wholesale showroom where, the presentation has to be perfect, or making sure that the dust is not on the shelf, but it's, I don't know, it's something that's in me that I want to make sure that everything is perfect. And it's also a weakness, And then you learn, you just got to let some things go. So when we're doing an event, we've got a big event over the next few days, and you can only do as much as you can do, and it's about not controlling the outcome, because the outcome you can't be, you can just never control that. But what I say to my girls is, as long as we've done our best, and I always say we're going to make mistakes, not to like manifest that we are, but just to put it out there, there's going to be something that will come up. But, and actually my dad always taught this, nothing ever runs smoothly, but you just deal with it when it comes up. And so knowing that happens takes out that pressure almost. But just give your best. Know something will come up. You can fix it and then move forward.
I think the mantra that as I've got older, I've sort of adopted more and more of, and now I understand, is that only worry about the things that you can actually control, because you can't worry about things you can't control.
No.
And we spend a lot of our lives worrying about things that we can't control, which is actually stupid.
It is stupid. It's hard to get you out of that cycle sometimes, but that
is a cycle. It really is. Yeah. So tell me about how the agency came about and how sort of your foray into that.
Well, I was working with the distributor for almost 9 years, and then I did my executive MBA when I signed up for it at 25. Because at that stage I was like, I'm going to be the CEO of Hermes or Chanel. Like they were my dreams, be in the industry 2 minutes. And my good friend Hayley, the one that we used to go to Shoal Bay with, she was like, you're going to need your MBA, Jack. And I was like, right. And so she helped me choose one of the top 30 schools in the world, which was luckily in UNSW in Australia. And I started this 4-year course, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Right.
So I didn't come from a business undergrad. I'm with all, consultants from JP Morgan and McKinsey, and they're speaking in acronyms.
Intimidating. Yeah.
I mean, why speaking in acronyms? No one knows what you're talking about. So I'm sitting there and I would have to study so hard. I probably had 30 minutes of free time on the weekend and running this business that was now 40 people deep. But I finished that and I knew I wanted my own business. So I had a part of that business, made a play to take it over, but it wasn't saleable. He was keen to stay, and so I started, and actually we're celebrating 10 years this year, which is super exciting.
Amazing.
Yeah, really exciting. And I kind of, that same kind of naivety of like, I'm going to go to fashion college and I'm going to go do my MBA and whatnot. And I started my business. I didn't take any brands with me. And I remember, I went to Mexico for a couple of weeks with girlfriends, and then I started, January of 2015, and I thought, all right, I'll just go get some brands now. So there I am, and I've landed in LA from Mexico, and I just started reaching out to people, and Nina Bing was the first brand that I got. And it was this weird twist of fate where, some people that I was, hanging out with in summer, they're like, and I was asking everyone, what brands should I get? And they're like, there's this brand, Nihilea. And you should get it. Anyway, I'm driving down Melrose and I see Nihilea, and I'm like, there's that brand. Swerve in, walk inside, and I meet the owner. And this owner's like this, just, I don't know what you'd call him, but he's just like this big, blonde, jacked, and just like everything LA about him with the jewelry. And anyway, I'm like starting my business, want to work with you. And I signed him on the spot as a distributor. But then he goes, what other brands are you looking at? And I said, I like this brand, Nina Bing. And he goes, okay, well, Nico, her husband, the CEO, I went to school with. He's my best friend. Let me call him. calls him,
Wow.
gets me in a meeting for the next day. I meet Nico Bing. Nico's, we have a great meeting, and I've got this energy that's just, I've just started my business. I've got no income, no brands, but I'm going to make this work.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to change your life. This brand will change your life. And I was like, I'll change your life, my typical retort. But signed the brand. No one knew it back then at all. And I launched it with 3 stores that year. So bear in mind, I've come from a general manager salary. Started my business. I'm living in Woolloomooloo, Sydney. Thankfully owned my property. But if I'd have I didn't chase sales. I chased building brands. And that's always been core of what I'd done and what we wanted to do with this business. So it was about building brands in Australia and New Zealand and the best way to do that. So we launched with just 3 stores that year. I remember getting my first commission check of like $300, and my mum's in the kitchen and she's like helping me do something, and she's like, oh darling, you think it was a good idea you started this business? And I laughed and I was like, Mum, it's gonna be great, don't stress.
You wait.
You wait. And then after 3 years I started to breathe, and I had 8 amazing brands. I couldn't have been luckier with the brands that I got. They were all high end. They're from Europe and America, and the industry's quite small, and they see someone that loves to work well, and is a win-win. For me, win-win in every partnership that I have is so important, and just been really fortuitous in what we've been able to create.
You've worked with Marty now for coming up 10 years. So how did you guys meet?
Yeah. So Marty, co-founder of This Is Fabric and we're celebrating 23 years there. Yeah. And I guess for those that don't know, I took that over 6 years ago. So Marty and I met on the wholesale side, back in 2012 in Paris, and I was selling a brand called Iro at the time to him, and he'd always rock in and he was so cool, and all of the stores would kind of buy like one part of the collection, and Marty would come in and he'd buy completely different to everyone. And he'd come in and he'd say like, oh, what's working well, Jack? And I'd sort of look at him like, Marty, I've got no idea what you're going to buy. You go through the collection, you choose, and like you find what. And he would always bring the most amazing fashion sense and perspective to everything that was in the collection. And the best thing about Marty when we were selling to him, and the reason why Fabric was always that store that you wanted to launch in, is that they go by their own rules. They don't follow everyone else. They're leaders. And if everyone's doing it, they may do it because it's important for their customer, but they provide such a different perspective. So we met in Paris. I'd always, I was on the sales side. He was on the buying. I'd always invite him to dinner. He'd always say no. He's like chronic no. And then I'd be like, Marty, one day you're going to go to dinner with me, like, come on, Then finally I took over Fabric, and now he's got to go to dinner with me all the time.
Wow. So how do you work together? So what are your strengths, his strengths, weaknesses, etc.? How does that balance out?
I think the core strengths and why Fabric was such an amazing, synergy for me is the business side of it. So I manage all, strategy and numbers and finance are like my core strength, plus also culture. Coming from that basketball background, everything to me is about the team culture. And when I first got into Fabric, it was one of those, I hate cultures where it's like, why did you do this and why did you do that? Whereas for me, learning is like a lifelong value. And I'm okay with mistakes always, but it's like, how do we learn from that? So I'm like, and 100%. Get into that and figure that out. So it was about changing that culture, and that didn't have to do with Marty. That was from, different, and just understanding the structure behind it. A lot of people get into fashion because they love fashion and design. Numbers are not their strong suit, or Excel or whatever it is. And for me, that's my strong suit. How do we make this business work? Yeah. Also, like, why does this business exist, and what are we trying to take from it as well? And I think the GFC was probably the biggest learning lesson for me. My previous boss nearly lost it all, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm working my guts out, and he's about to lose everything he has. How? And I'll make sure that never happens again. So making sure that business is sustainable, and that because everyone's livelihoods, they depend on this business being successful. So that's what drives me, I guess, every day. Speaking of that, so the retail environment has been fairly bumpy, the last wee while. I mean, we've had, New Zealand's had a rough ride. I think Australia's had some tricky times too. How are you finding the retail scene across the 2 different countries? And how do you find managing stores across 2 countries? I love it. I absolutely love it. You're a glutton for punishment. I actually am. But I also love the fact, we had the wholesale agency, which is the core of the business. And then being on the other side, being able to retail, which has just been a true love and passion for so long, is just so exciting. So I feel like people ask me, how do you get motivated? I'm like, I don't need to. Like, it's just in me. I'm excited about that every day. Managing it across the two, I think it's good for them. I bring an intensity every day, and for them being able to hang up the phone on me, I think is probably like is like a relief. It's like, it's good, right? Yeah. But no, I don't. I think in this world and in this era where everything's done virtually, it works. I think the only thing is that there's a certain energy that you can bring when you're face to face with someone, and I think you can't mistake. And like, there's no trading that, but I can come over here often enough that it's fine. Retail climate has been tricky, right? Yeah. But it's tricky in a way that for us, it's always about the end consumer. You never walk into Fabric and someone's like, gosh, they were pushy. For us, it's always about the customer. What's their experience? What do they need? And how do we deliver exceptionally on that? So if we're going through a tough market where, interest rates are going up, people's expendable income is down, then it's like, well, we're not going to push things. We're going to manage what our expectations are. We're going to make sure that this business is good, that we're solid, that we're managing our stock, what we're purchasing, so that it's all cyclical.
You're not overcommitted.
Not overcommitted. In 20 years, and now this year it's like incredible. Like, we've got our product offering plus what people are coming in for. It's just like it's rolling. So really lucky.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's the worst fashion investment you have ever made personally?
Like this week, last week, like every week. I love that. Okay, cool. Oh my gosh, just so many that I can't even. I feel like every single pair of overpriced shoes that I've bought for the last 20 years, I could probably have houses, instead of those. Yeah. But to single out one. No, because I always there's just so much emotion in it. So even if it's bad now, it was good at that moment. Yeah. So I'm totally fine with it.
Speaking of shoes, do you think people's attitude towards footwear has changed markedly, especially since COVID? Do you think, because we've seen the rise and rise and rise and rise of the sneaker, right? So sneakers now are everywhere. They're black tie. Yes. They're at work. They're in the office. And is that something you've seen?
I think for men specifically, definitely, and obviously sneakers are huge. They've become acceptable to wear with everything. So yeah, we've got a big sneaker business. Yeah. And that's definitely there. But speaking of investments, you're still paying $1,000 for some sneakers. And they're a badge of honor. It's like the man's watch. Like if he's got the $1,500 pair of sneakers, like that's his way of dressing up.
So true. Yeah. So true. What do you do to relax? So obviously, you're quite high energy. You're on the go.
Yes.
How do you unplug and relax and get your sort of your headspace clear?
Yeah. Couple of different ways. Like for me, it's always been meditation and yoga. Cool. They're like my zen and my go-to. And I yoga every day and I meditate twice a day, 20 minutes each time, transcendental. And I feel like that's been one of the key. It's one of the ways that I'm all about preserving my energy because I'm giving a lot all the time. So then you're right, I've got to bring it in. But last year I started playing golf. There's not a conversation that I will have with anyone where golf doesn't come up. Like it's literally all the time. So my partner is a mad golfer and is a member actually of the Hills in Queenstown, which is epic. So, last year I went to Queenstown a stupid amount of times and it's just everything for me because it's the pursuit of excellence of a new skill. It's learning a new skill. You cannot think about anything when you're swinging a golf club. Yeah. Plus, it's 4 hours without your phone. You're in nature, in the most beautiful places you could possibly be. Yeah. And you're walking and you're getting fresh air. And it's just like, for me, this hobby that means nothing, that will get me nowhere, that takes up so much of my mind, my space in my mind, has been the greatest gift I could have ever been given.
You could be the poster child for a golf campaign.
I literally need to be. Yeah, so that's been, I think so many women, and the other thing is I've met the most badass women doing it. I always thought these women at the golf clubs would be sort of just a bit, I don't know, snooty, if I can say that. Whereas the women that I've met are just, they've had careers and they're go-getters. Because to learn this new sport, you've got to be fairly driven. Yeah. So I've been surprised by just the amount of cool people I've met on the golf course.
What has been one of the happiest moments of your life? Hard to pinpoint one, but just like a time when you were your most happy. Could be now.
Could be now. I mean, I'm pretty happy right now. Yeah. Oh gosh, it's super hard. I think if I talk professionally, I'll never forget when I started the business, and when I was, actually I probably shouldn't mention this because it might make me sound a little bit snooty, which I'm not. But I came off an economy class flight, which I hadn't flown economy in forever. I'm a 6 foot tall woman, so it's really hard for me to sit in an economy flight. But I came off from New York economy. I'd paid everything myself, and it was just the greatest feeling. I walked off from Sydney and I'd started this business, and I was 2 months in. I just signed this brand that no one knew about, and I just remember this feeling of being like, I'm doing this for me and this is going to be epic. And this like elated feeling.
Empowered.
Empowered. And I feel like that was one of the happiest. On a personal note, I met my partner, Brad, about 1.5 years ago, and just being able to share this journey with someone who's just, on my level, like there's just my one, has been amazing. So that's been pretty happy.
When did you last belly laugh?
All the time. I laugh all the time, but
I get a sense of that.
Yeah, there is most, and it's normally around when the ridiculous happens, when things have gone wrong, or like if the office is super stressful, we will laugh our way through it because it's just like, how are we in this world and how is this happening right now?
Yeah.
And then the laughter will start, and we will just, Ali, who runs my head of wholesale, we're known for just like chasing dreams, we say, where we're just, we might have like 4 suitcases and a rack, and everyone thinks that fashion is this super glamorous game, and we are just like chasing our tails, and it's just not, and we'll laugh ourselves silly. It is. And you've got to be a certain cut to be made for that. There are a lot of people that can buy fashion and understand that, but to work in it, you've got to be, I think, pretty tough.
Yeah. It's funny with the laughter things. I always think now, even like at the age that I've got to, and sometimes I want to laugh at the most inappropriate moments, especially in business.
Yeah.
You go, I can't laugh now, but you can't stop it.
Yeah.
I
wish in my mind I said to myself, I can't laugh now, where normally I would just laugh. It's good you've got that filter.
If you weren't in fashion, and that you've done a lot of things over your career, but if you weren't in fashion right now, what else do you think you'd be doing?
I think I probably would have gone down the sports route, but I think ultimately I knew, like, I've got this one vision in my mind, and I'm like, I've got this blackboard and I'm teaching, and so I don't think I would have been a teacher, but I think in business I was always made to sort of like lead or instruct. I've always had that in me, and I love, my father had his own business. He was a welder. My brother had, big real estate company in Australia, which he sold, and now he does real estate coaching. And I just think that's something that's in us.
So you've got a really good view of the fashion scene in both Australia and New Zealand. What are some of the differences you see?
Yeah. I think living in Bondi, people show a lot more skin. There's always that. But I think climate-wise in New Zealand, there's a better ability to be able to really work with fashion. You see that when you go to the European countries where they've got all seasons. In Australia, our winter season's so small, so there's less of that fashion element. And if you go to Paris during January or March market, it's the winter fashion that gets you. It's the men that are dressed, immaculately, and the women that have just so many different layers to them. So I think in New Zealand you get more of that sense because it's a cooler climate. Yeah. I also think in New Zealand there's such an appreciation for craftsmanship and quality, and they're super fashion forward, and I think I don't know if that comes from being climate-wise. We're in Australia, we're hot all the time. I feel like I'm hot all the time, so I'm like, what am I going to wear that I'm not going to be sweating in, Whereas over here you can experience more of that.
What's the retail scene like in Australia right now?
It's been tough. Yeah. I would say since July 2023, it's been tough. There are amazing retailers that are doing well, but it's not those days where everyone was getting the handouts during COVID, so it's definitely different. And I would say this year there's been an amazing swing positively. So I feel like we're almost out of that downturn that we've had, and we're coming through.
And what's your sense of the retail scene in New Zealand?
New Zealand, same thing. This year it's been great, and just coming back. So I feel like there's always, I think that expectations will always monitor how things are going. If you're expecting year-on-year percentage growth in a market that's a down market, then you're not going to meet it. But if you know that it's a down market and you manage those expectations and you deliver what you can in that market, then your understanding is going to be okay. I
think bringing a level of realism to business is such a refreshing view, because sometimes, especially big multinational brands, there's just this, we're putting up targets every year on year, regardless of what's going on in the geopolitical and the economic environments. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I think, the best part is that we're a small business and we run our own race, and if I was, to determine, I remember when I started the business, I had this little thing, and it was to determine what success meant to me. And it was to be able to live my life in my own way. And that means also in business. Like we're not reporting to a board that demands growth for the sake of growth.
Yeah.
I think that's where people go down. We're not about that. We're about, like I've said, delivering that customer experience and managing those expectations.
How would you describe your Newmarket customer?
Oh, she's amazing. So Newmarket is our women's only store. We're trying to get a men's space, but it's women's only at the moment. And we were in there yesterday, and our Newmarket customer is just, she's loyal. She's shopped at that store for, over 10 years. Yeah. We get a lot of mums in there that, and we get women that, they may just not want to go to work on Monday, so they're coming in and buying an amazing totem skirt or something. We had this great woman yesterday. She's like, I didn't feel like working yet, so I'm going to come in, and, it's such a fun experience. It's the cutest store, and she's great.
Yeah. You mentioned before that coming off that economy flight, was that one of your biggest pinch me moments in your career?
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously I was relieved to be off the flight. I'd say that I've got two that really ring a bell. So when I'd started work as the brand manager for the distributor, I remember landing in New York there used to be this trade show, there still is, this trade show called Coterie, and it was the biggest trade show. Yeah. So I don't think I'd ever been to New York. And I landed in New York, and the boss had sent me on my own because I was, running the business. I was maybe 25 or 26. Yeah. And it was just, the New York energy gets you, and I'm meeting with the most amazing heads of company. Like there's some just powerful people, and I'm sitting at the table with them. And I just remember being able to ask them everything and being so inspired because they've got 40 years of experience. And I just remember almost like that twirling around when the rain's coming down and being like, how cool is this, you know? And I had the same experience my first trip to Paris, and also every single time I land to Paris. I go maybe 3 or 4 times a year now, and maybe twice now since COVID left. And being in Paris at the Euro showroom and meeting one of my best friends, Luca, and they're just so cool. And the city's so cool, and everywhere you look is amazing. And I thought, this is my job. Are you joking? Yeah. Like, how do I get to land here, meet with incredible business people in this city, and that's my job? Yeah. Very amazing. Cool. Yeah. That's still a pinch me moment. It still is. Yeah, it still is.
Do you have any regrets?
Yeah, I've got one. It's which I don't normally. I'm like, everything in life gets you to where you are. So I'm normally like a no regret, but there is just one. It's but there is one. When I was studying my MBA, and I'd just gotten back with my ex-fiance at the time. So, he was my fiance at the time, and I'm back with him, and I had an opportunity to go to UCLA for 12 weeks on a what do you call it, exchange program, and I didn't take it. For fear out of, just back with the boy, like, don't ever make a decision based on the boy, girls, like ever, because you always regret it, always. You've got to choose you because it'll get you to the best spot. But that, and also I was running the company, I thought, how am I ever going to do this? But sometimes you've just got to go and know that it'll work out. Yeah. Sometimes we can get stuck in the how am I going to do it all, where it does work out. So being a mad sports fan, UCLA Bruins fan since forever, and being in LA, I think that would have been an incredible experience for me. Yeah.
What are some of the things on your bucket list?
On my bucket list, I kind of have the mentality of like, I want to do that, so I'm going to go do that. So it's like, having a bucket list is
do it as you go.
Do it as I go. And I never wanted to be, super old in life, not being able to walk and then being like, oh, now I'm going to go and hike this mountain. So, but I would say like Antarctica would be super cool to go visit. Cool. And I've never been to Canada, so I kind of feel like that would be amazing.
Yeah, probably a good time to go now, actually.
Yeah, it would be, right?
They need the support, yeah. Where's your favourite place to be in the world?
Oh, I'm so lucky. Actually, my favourite place is home, but I feel like home is what I have to create because I travel so much. Yeah. And home is like a series of rituals for me. It's like my coffee in the morning, my journal, my good book, and just having moments. It's really my mornings that is home, and that's my favourite place to be in the world. But, Queenstown I love. I live in Bondi. My parents are in Mossman. Like I'm lucky with water and in nature, I'd say. But not a specific place, yeah.
Perfect, love that.
Yeah.
It's 8 p.m. on a Saturday night. Where are you and what are you doing?
Oh, I'm such a loser. I'm probably like on my couch getting ready for bed or like reading a book and being like super excited for Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favourite time of the week?
Sunday morning.
Yeah.
No one. Well, because no one just like, there's, when you've got your own business and it's across however many, someone's always needs you or wants you, you know, and Sunday morning, no one needs me or wants me.
Yeah.
You know, so it's that moment for me to just be me and veg out and do whatever.
I love that. What's next for Jacki personally?
I need to get my handicap in the teens.
So, golf. A lot of golf.
Golf. No, you know, celebrating 10 years of the agency, you know, having taken over Fabric 6 years ago and we've got 2 stores now and obviously I've got the Neen Bing stores in Australia. We're looking at our next 10-year strategy and where that is, and I want to double and triple and do that fearlessly. So just to be open to what the opportunities are next, and I think, and that's probably it.
Would you expand further in New Zealand?
Definitely.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's
when it
good
makes
news.
sense. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's a great market.
Some quick fire things to finish off with. What's your favourite book?
Favorite book? I think Anna Karenina, Leo Tolstoy, like one of my, I love the classics. Wow. Dickens, Tolstoy, like I love them. So yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Who's your favourite band?
Or
singer?
Maybe like In Excess, because I can't put on a song and not sit like I'm In Excess and not sing and dance to it. Like it's
Excess.
Yeah, energy.
They're amazing.
Also Madonna. Yeah. Also Beyonce.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
A good spread of diversity.
And J-Lo. There we go.
What about your favourite movie?
Favorite movie, maybe like, I think Devil Wears Prada. I could watch day after day after day. Yeah.
That is so good. Yeah.
So good.
What's the best thing you've seen on Netflix recently?
I don't watch TV.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't watch a lot. Like I might watch like maybe a movie a month on like that Thursday night when I'm exhausted, but I just don't, I'm not a Netflixer.
Yeah. What's your favourite season of the year?
Oh, I like all the seasons. But yeah, I like all the seasons. I can't actually pick a favourite.
Yeah. And you into cats or dogs?
Both.
Both. Okay, cool.
I mean, I love dogs, but also I love both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jacki, that's it. Thank you so much for joining. It's been amazing. I've actually learnt a lot and it's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Finally, check out the new selfie studio at Westfield Newmarket. Nail Time has opened in Osborne Street. Toast on the Green has opened on Lumsden Green, and Reunion Bar and Grill on Carlton Gore Road. I'll see you next month. Cheers.